to the question of the city farmland. Can some of that land be developed and still leave some for public open space, or should it all be collapsed into Riverview Farm Park? Is there a middle ground to that land?
I don't want to start a riot in here with people who are very passionate about that piece of land. But I don't know the answer to that question because I don't have the consensus, I don't have the data yet. And what I'm looking for is, before any decision that I would make, would be what I would call a standard operating procedure. And that is to collect data, to look at what the environmental study is going to show, to look at what the traffic impact is going to be on that piece of land, to look at whether or not we can include the marina on that. Those are things that when you plan something, you want it to be the best it can be. If it's going to be a park, I want it to be the best park there is. So I'm waiting to see the plans that are going to come in and the ideas. I'm not a park developer, I'm not a housing developer, but I am a consensus developer. And I want every side of that to sit at a table, give their best reasons of why they want to see what it is, and for us to make a consensus decision on that piece of property. And it'll probably be years because we've got the archaeological study to finish, we've got the planning department to bring in their plans from all across the country. We could look at that new 55 acres and not the part that is there. The park is there, but whether or not we want to extend it to something greater and better for the good of the citizens. And I'm going to go with the consensus group.
Okay, Mr. Green.
I just think that's one of the challenges of our city. And I think you heard everything except, yes, we're going to go ahead and tear down Riverview Farm Park. When you're doing traffic patterns, when you're looking at how you're going to change the way that a park looks, no one requested it except someone that wants to get their hand on that land. We would have been better off just saying the land is going to stay the way it is. We have no plan for Riverview Farm Park.
Well, to be fair, the question was about city farmland. What should be done with the city farmland?
Correct. They go hand in hand. I'll talk to you a little bit later about it. The challenge that we will have is that we want to be able to trust the new mayor. We want to be able to say that Riverview Farm Park is going to stay intact. You know, it goes something like this. I walk into an office and I tell someone, hey, you know, your company's failing, $50 million a week. You just laid off 30 employees. Things are looking pretty dire, sir. I want you to make a decision. I want you to tell me what you want me to do. I'm here to help you. You're paying me X number of dollars per day. Families are hurting. You're going to go out of business in a month. If that CEO turns to me and says, I need to do a little bit of consensus building, I'll walk out the door. People are asking us to make a leadership decision. Either you're for something or you're against it. I believe in consensus building once you understand what the vision and the strategy is going to be. It's very clear to me about where I'm going to go tomorrow. In a few weeks, I'm going to be in Prague. I know my mom's going to be taken care of. There are things that I know for sure. I know that I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping people who grew up in an impoverished situation like me, who had a single mom who worked 3 jobs. If you ask me about someone that's poor and homeless, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to help them. If someone comes to me with an issue that I'm passionate about, I'm going to solve it. As an engineer, I problem solve.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Time is up. Mr. Creekmore?
I apologize, but I don't know the question anymore. It's gotten twisted a little bit.
All right, so it's a follow-up to that earlier question. Thinking then about the development-redevelopment challenge, is there a middle ground solution on the question of the city farmland? Can some of that land be developed and still leave some for public open space, or should it all be collapsed into Riverview Farm Park? Is there a middle ground?
Okay, thank you. When you say the word develop, if you're referring to housing on that plot of land or those plots, those acres, no. But if you're referring to developing an attraction for our region, yes. And what I would mean by that is, you know, right now it's raw acreage. We need to have public access. That's going to require paths. If that's what's desired, it's going to require benches, maybe some small restaurant, because we want to attract people here. You know, in our region, we have a shortage of green space. We're about 844 acres short of what's recommended for a healthy city to grow. And you know, our parks are critical to that. So we can't afford to develop anymore, but we can afford to make our parks the best in the region. And I'm all about bringing in a planning process to make it the best for everyone, but I am not about selling 1 acre to any private owner. And I'll start with that.
Councilman Harris.
Yes, I mean, the question that preceded this one kind of spoke to what I'm going to say because we're already 95% developed out. My vision, if I could share it with you today, tonight, is to use the park as an economic driver. I had a chance to read, I shared this at the Sierra Club forum, that I had a chance to read a very engaging commentary on the park and how my vision aligns with what that commentary shared, with how we could use that to make it niche activities or events here in our city. We could very well develop it into a recreational area in which we can host events that could bring money to our area. We could have fields available that could host tournaments. We could have cross-country routes that could bring in even more events to our city, because it is a prime piece of land that can be used for the betterment of the city and for the people of the city, not for a chosen few that want to develop it into residential areas. And I would hope and pray that moving forward, that even though we're having an archaeological study, which I think is a little long overdue, but once we get to the point where we can finally sit down, because the people that I've spoken to have spoke so eloquently on what they want that park to be, and as representatives of the people, we have to take into account that they envision one thing, so we shouldn't go and envision anything else when they have such a passion for what they would like the park to be, and for what my vision for the park would be, is to develop it in a manner where we could have events for our public and not just for private.
Okay, Mayor Price, 30 seconds.
Yeah, just the thought of not doing environmental and traffic impacts, whether it's a park, without doing that is, to me, crazy. If you just talked about developing into something that is an attraction, what do you think that's going to do with the people who are going there and the impact on that neighborhood? We need to know that. We need to know where those cars are going to park, how it's going to impact the neighborhood. No matter what it's going to be, we have to have those.
Okay. Yeah, so Mr. Green, if all three of you want to take 30 seconds.
Right. So I think what we're asking for is that any decisions that are made are, first of all, made in a transparent way, and they're made with consensus on understanding what the end goal is going to be. And so when folks have been disappointed before by our city, it's because we thought one thing, and then there was another outcome. We thought you were doing this study for one reason, and then before you know it, there's something else being built in front of us that we didn't think was going to be the outcome of the study. So it just goes to the basic principle of trust, and I think that some of that's been eroded through our leadership in the city, and I think that that's all people are asking for.
Right, thank you. Mr. Creekmore, you want 30 seconds?
Yeah, tonight I see Mr. Dale Good, Mr. Adrian Whitcomb. They've been fighting this fight for a long time. We do need the studies that the mayor referred to. However, we also need to be very clear that the fight that's been going on since 1991, that it's over now, and the citizens have won, and they're going to get the park back. And that's what I want to make very clear.
Okay, and Councilman, okay. So this will be the last question, and then we'll go to closing statements. And this will go to Mr. Green first, and then we'll go down the line.